Imagine a voice so powerful it stops everyone in their tracks. A small-town Filipino teen with nothing but a dream is about to take the world by storm. With nothing but his heart, courage, and a song, he's about to show that even the humble beginnings can create the most unforgettable moments. This is a story of hope, kindness, and talent that will leave you breathless. The sun was just beginning to dip behind the jagged rooftops of Cebu, painting the sky in streaks of gold and crimson. On a quiet tin-roofed terrace, 14-year-old Miguel perched on a wooden stool, clutching his well-worn guitar. His black hair fell messily over his forehead, and his fingers trembled slightly as he strummed the first chord. Around him, the narrow streets buzzed with the evening chatter of neighbors, the distant barking of dogs, and the clatter of tricycles making their way home. But on that rooftop, the world seemed to pause. Miguel closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. Then he sang. The first note floated into the air, pure and trembling, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. His voice was small, fragile even, but it carried a kind of raw honesty that made the cluttered neighborhood below fall silent. A woman hanging laundry stopped mid-motion, staring upward with wide eyes. Children playing in the alleyway froze, their games forgotten. Even the old man sitting on his porch leaned forward, his cane tapping softly in rhythm with Miguel's melody. Every evening Miguel had done this singing on that rooftop. It was his sanctuary, his escape, and his way of speaking a language that words alone could never convey. His voice carried not just notes, but the weight of dreams too big for the narrow streets he had always called home. Dreams of stages bigger than any he had ever seen, of audiences beyond the walls of his small town, of a world that might actually hear him. His fingers danced over the guitar strings, imperfect yet passionate, as he sang a song his late mother, Pangia, had once hummed to him. It was more than a melody, it was a lifeline, a thread connecting him to the love and encouragement that had shaped him, even though life had been far from easy. Their home was modest, with peeling paint and a floor that creaked with every step, but it had been filled with music, laughter, and hope. And now, as Miguel sang, he poured all of that into each note, as if the rooftop itself might carry his voice to the sky. He opened his eyes and looked out over the neighborhood. Some of the children waved at him. A few adults whispered among themselves, clearly moved. Miguel smiled faintly, a mix of shyness and pride. In that moment, he felt it, a quiet, shimmering certainty that his music was bigger than the rooftops, bigger than the streets, bigger than Cebu itself. He didn't know it yet, but someone would soon notice him, someone who could change everything. A small-town boy with a powerful voice was about to take the first step toward a stage he had only dared to dream of. And even though no one else could hear the dreams he whispered through his music, Miguel felt the truth deep in his heart. His voice had the power to touch the world. As the final notes faded into the evening breeze, Miguel leaned back, eyes closed, letting the warm air wrap around him. The world outside continued its rhythm, but up on that rooftop, time had stood still. And in that quiet pause, a seed of possibility had been planted, a spark that would soon ignite a journey that no one, not even Miguel himself, could have imagined. A few weeks after his rooftop performance, Miguel's life took an unexpected turn. The afternoon sun streamed through the small windows of his family's home, casting warm golden light on the humble living room where his sister, Althea, sat, clutching an envelope that seemed far too important to simply toss on the table. Miguel noticed her hands trembling slightly as she handed it over. "Open it," she said softly, her eyes shining with a mix of excitement and worry. Miguel hesitated. Letters were usually bills or mundane notices, rarely anything extraordinary. but something in Althea's gaze made his fingers tingle with anticipation. He tore the envelope open, revealing a glossy card inside. Bold letters spelled out words he could barely believe. "You are invited to audition for America's Got Talent." For a moment, Miguel could only stare at the paper. His heart raced so fast, it felt like it would burst from his chest. America's Got Talent? Him. A boy from a small neighborhood in Cebu, a kid whose voice only the rooftops had ever truly heard. Could this really be happening? Althea placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Miguel, your voice? It's special. This is your chance. Don't let fear stop you." Fear did creep in. The stage, the cameras, the judges, the millions of viewers, everything seemed impossibly large. Miguel could imagine Simon Cowell's stern face, the enormous lights, the endless applause, or the harsh rejection. Doubt clawed at his mind. Could a small-town boy like him really belong on such a massive stage? He looked around their modest home, the cracked walls, the worn furniture. The little guitar leaning against the corner, and remembered all the evenings he had spent on the rooftop, singing to the empty sky. Each note, each melody had carried his dreams, his hope, and his unspoken desire to be heard beyond the narrow streets of Cebu. Althea smiled, seeing the storm in his eyes. "Your voice is a gift, Miguel. The world deserves to hear it. Not just for talent, but because it comes from your heart. Go. Show them who you are." That night, Miguel couldn't sleep. Every thought raced through his mind. The flights, the hotel, the stage, the crowd. But underneath the fear was something stronger, a spark of determination. A whisper from his own heart, telling him he couldn't let this opportunity pass. His dreams had always seemed distant, almost impossible, but now, for the first time, they felt tangible. Within reach, by morning, Miguel had made his decision. He would go. He would step onto that stage, not just to sing, but to carry the hopes of his small town, the love of his family, and the power of a voice that had always believed it could reach the world. As he packed his small bag, guitar in hand, Miguel felt a strange mixture of nervousness and excitement. This wasn't just an audition, it was a leap into the unknown. And somewhere deep in his chest, he knew that no matter what happened next, his voice would carry his dreams farther than he had ever imagined. The moment Miguel stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, the world suddenly felt enormous. The lights burned bright above him, blinding and unforgiving, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Thousands of faces blurred together. In the darkness beyond the stage, for a brief second, doubt crept in. His hands tightened around the microphone, and his heart thundered in his chest like it was trying to escape. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair. Arms crossed, expression unreadable. He had seen thousands of singers, thousands of hopefuls. Another kid with a dream? Or so it seemed. Miguel took a breath. In that instant, the noise, the fear, the pressure faded away. He wasn't on a massive stage anymore. He was back on his rooftop in Cebu, the warm evening breeze brushing his face, the familiar hum of his neighborhood below. He closed his eyes and began to sing. The first note drifted into the silence, soft but steady. Then came the second, stronger, fuller. Within seconds, the entire theater changed. The audience leaned forward, drawn in by something rare and undeniable. His voice wasn't just powerful, it was honest. Every note carried emotion, longing, and a kind of vulnerability that couldn't be taught. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Miguel's voice soared effortlessly, rich with soul, echoing through the hall like a memory you didn't want to let go of. It had the timeless depth of Elvis, the raw ache of heartbreak, and the innocence of a boy who had nothing to prove, only something to share. Simon's posture shifted. His arms slowly uncrossed. His eyes narrowed not with skepticism, but with surprise. He leaned forward, clearly shaken. This wasn't just good. This was special. As Miguel reached the chorus, emotion poured through him. He wasn't performing for applause. He was singing for his family, for his late mother. For every kid who had ever been told their dreams were too big for where they Kanj from his voice cracked not from weakness, but from truth, and the audience felt it. Some wiped away tears. Others sat frozen, afraid to breathe. When the final note hung in the air, there was a split second of silence. A sacred pause. Then the room exploded. The audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause. Cheers echoed from every corner of the theater. Miguel stood still, stunned, eyes wide, trying to understand what had just happened. Simon Cowell shook. His head slowly, a rare smile forming. That, he said quietly, was extraordinary. Miguel's knees nearly gave out. In that moment, the boy from Cebu realized something profound. His voice didn't just carry sand, it carried hearts. And for the first time, the world wasn't just listening, it was feeling every word. The applause still echoed through the theater when Miguel stepped away from the center of the stage. His heart was pounding, his ears ringing, and his hands trembling not from fear, but from disbelief. He had sung his heart out, and the world had listened. Yet, as the cheers slowly softened, Miguel noticed something that pulled him out of the moment. In the middle rows of the audience, a young girl sat with her head lowered, quietly crying. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old. While everyone around her clapped and smiled, her shoulders shook as she wiped tears from her cheeks. Miguel's chest tightened. He didn't know her story, but he recognized that pain. It was the same pain he had felt on nights when hope seemed distant and dreams felt fragile. Without thinking, Miguel took a step toward the edge of the stage. The host looked confused. The cameras followed him as he gently raised his hand, asking for a moment. The audience grew quiet, unsure of what was happening. Miguel pointed toward the girl and spoke softly into the microphone. "Are you okay?" he asked. The girl hesitated, then shook her head. A staff member helped her stand, and through broken words, her story came out. Her family had lost their home to a devastating typhoon. Music had once been her escape, but lately, everything felt heavy. Miguel listened, eyes glistening. He didn't see a stranger, he saw himself. He stepped down from the stage and walked toward her. The room fell silent. Miguel knelt in front of the girl and smiled gently. "You're not alone," he whispered. Then, without music, without lights, without applause, he began to sing. His voice was softer, not quieter, warmer, but even more powerful. It wrapped around the girl like a blanket, offering comfort where words had failed. The melody wasn't for the crowd. It wasn't for the judges. It was for one broken heart in need of hope. The girl's tears slowed. She looked up, her eyes filled with wonder. The audience watched in stunned silence, many wiping away their own tears. In that moment, the competition disappeared. This wasn't television. This was humanity. Simon Cowell sat frozen. Simon Cowell sat frozen. This lector frozen. He had judged talent for decades, but what he was witnessing went far beyond a performance. It was compassion in its purest form. He lowered his head briefly, collecting himself. Visibly moved. When Miguel finished singing, the girl smiled a small, shaky smile, but real. She hugged him tightly. The audience erupted, louder than before, not with cheers, but with something deeper. Gratitude. Miguel returned to the stage, overwhelmed. He hadn't planned any of it. He had simply followed his heart, and in doing so, he reminded everyone watching, whether in that theater or across the world, that true greatness isn't just about how high a voice can soar, but how deeply it can heal. The theater was still buzzing with emotion when Miguel slowly returned to the center of the stage. The little girl was back in her seat now, smiling through tear-streaked cheeks, clutching her mother's hand. The moment they shared lingered in the air, heavier than applause, deeper than cheers. This wasn't just a talent show anymore, it was something real. Simon Cowell leaned forward, his eyes fixed on Miguel for a long moment. He said nothing. The room was silent, waiting. "I've judged singers for a very long time," Simon finally. Pangier's voice unusually soft. "And yes, your voice is incredible. But what you just did, that was something else." He paused, choosing his words carefully. Talent can impress, but kindness, that stays with people forever. Miguel stood frozen, barely breathing. The other judges nodded in agreement. Their expressions filled with awe and admiration. One spoke about Miguel's authenticity. Another praised his heart. The audience listened, hanging on every word, already sensing something unforgettable was about to happen. Then Simon placed his hand on the desk. "You reminded us why music matters," he said. "You've reminded us why we're all here." And with that, he reached forward and pressed the golden buzzer. For a split second, time stopped. Then gold confetti exploded from above, raining down like a dream made real. The crowd erupted into thunderous cheers. Miguel's eyes widened in shock. His knees buckled as he covered his mouth, tears streaming freely down his face. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but nothing could have prepared him for how it felt. As golden pieces fluttered around him, Miguel looked up into the lights, overwhelmed in his mind. He wasn't seeing the stage. He was seeing his rooftop in Cebu, his sister's encouraging smile, his mother humming softly, every struggle, every doubt, every quiet prayer. The judges stood. The audience stood. The little girl stood too, clapping with all her strength. Miguel wiped his tears and took a shaky breath. "Thank you," he whispered into the microphone. "I sing for people who feel forgotten. I sing because music helped me believe, and if my voice can give someone hope, heaven, just one person, then that's everything." The applause grew even louder. In that moment, Miguel was no longer just a contestant. He was a symbol of possibility. Proof that where you come from doesn't limit how far you can go. That kindness can be louder than criticism. That a single voice, when guided by compassion, can echo across the world. As the confetti settled and the lights dimmed, one truth remained crystal clear. Even Elvis would be amazed not just by the voice, but by the heart behind it. And somewhere far away, on a quiet rooftop in Cebu, dreams were learning how to fly.